Welcome back for another episode. As part of my aim to end homophobia in sport, I'm putting together an Out Athlete series. This series will interview athletes that have come out the closet and are still competing in their sport. I'm going to find out a little bit more about them, about how their journey was and what their experiences were like, both as an athlete that was in the closet and then an athlete that has come out of the closet, and also their coming out experience. Today, I was fortunate enough to catch up with a very good friend, Jamie Carroll, who is an openly out 10-pin bowler and was the person behind the Pride Monarchs team, which were the first Pride team in the National 10-pin bowling competition. I'm your host, Dion Alexander, Mr. Gay Pride Australia 2022, and you are listening to Our Pride by Mr. Gay Pride Australia. Hello fam and welcome. I'm today joined by a very good friend, Jamie Carroll, who has actually got all of this all started. It was all your fault, Jamie.
Yeah, right.
You sent me a link a long time ago.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Mr. Gay Pride Australia application link, and you said to me that I should apply.
Yes.
And I was thinking at the time maybe I shouldn't, but here we are now, and all of this is unfolded. So I have to thank you firstly publicly for that.
Chicken dinner.
Chicken dinner. Winner, chicken dinner. I'm joined with Jamie today as part of an Out Athlete series that I'm looking to put together. So Jamie is a 10-pin bowler, a fellow South Australian as well, and was the person that first introduced a Pride team at a national 10-pin bowling competition. So obviously, thank you, Jamie, for doing all of that.
That's fine. My pleasure.
Today, I wanted to get a little bit more of Jamie's backstory, a little bit about his journey, what's like being an out athlete, and then talk a little bit more about the Pride Monarchs, who were the bowling team. So I think just to start off, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Me, so I grew up in Adelaide and moved here when I was 21, 22. So I've been here for over 30 years. I know it doesn't look like it. And I'm very happy here, and I've got a really established group of friends, and I've had my own business for a long time. I'm a graphic designer. So yeah, I've had a very kind of, life's been pretty good to me.
Yep.
And I'm kind of taken up bowling 5 years ago because I think it's good to have a hobby.
Yep.
And especially I'm getting a bit older, and I think there's something to, fill your time and keep you occupied. Stop you being cranky. Although it makes it pretty cranky, any sport. It's like golf, It's as frustrating as golf, I've been told by a lot of people. So
Yes, it definitely is very frustrating.
it is.
And it keeps you away from your loving partner as well.
It does. He actually came to watch me on the weekend for the first time in a long time. And he said, it's too cold in these places to watch people. I thought, okay, fair enough. My sister also came to watch me, and she said, oh, it's like golf. It takes forever. There's a lot of equipment. And everyone's really frustrated. I said,
Yep.
That's right. So yeah, and whatever. I live in the city, which is actually not handy for 10-pin bowling because it's not. But when I finished juniors, my last year was around the corner in Rushcutters, but now that's some,
Apartment building.
yes, very expensive ones. And yes, I've got to drive a long way to get to bowling, and so it does require a level of commitment.
Yeah.
So, but I'm willing to put that in.
Awesome. So you started bowling when you were quite young, didn't you?
9 or 10.
Yep.
So, and was kind of coached from very early on.
Yep.
Like they used to kind of scout around, and as your dad's a coach, and they
Yes.
look for the talent. And so I was really lucky. I kind of got taken under the wing of some really, really kind of caring sort of people, and I had some really good friends when I was a kid in bowling. It was a very, 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 very positive experience.
Awesome.
To kind of be good at something when you're a kid.
Yes.
Not that I was like painfully shy or anything, but it definitely turned me from a, sort of quietish 14-year-old to a very brash, confident 18-year-old. Then the next year I came out. So that's a...
Wow.
Yeah.
So you represented South Australia at the time in President's Shield, didn't you?
We've swapped stories. I was the captain in 1986.
Away!
And you were born in 1988. But you were also the captain very long time after. So yeah. And I used to travel a lot, and I actually left school. I left in the middle of year 12 because like I had to choose. Like
Yep.
all the time taken up by bowling was affecting my grades, and I'm like intrinsically so competitive that I couldn't finish year 12 if I didn't get a fantastic mark. So I just didn't finish it. It's as simple as that. But yeah, I was very, very devoted to it. And then a year later, I wasn't bowling anymore.
Well, yep. So when you were bowling, were you openly out?
No.
No. Did you know about your sexuality at that stage? Tell us a little bit more about thoughts in your head around that.
Well, do you know what? It's so long ago, and I kind of remember being more sort of not confused, but being more aware that I had like homosexual tendencies.
Yep.
When I was much younger, you
Yep.
know, like 13 to 14.
Yep.
But then I think there was that age where you hit where you're like, okay, I'm a teenager now. I've got to have like the right hair. I've got to do all those teenage things. I've got to,
Yep.
you know, and I came from a pretty simple background. So, yeah, there wasn't a lot of kind of cash being thrown around to not a sport or anything, but I did really like to present a certain view of myself.
Yep.
And that included having pretty girlfriends,
Yep.
you know? So, yeah, I think I still had a girlfriend up until I was 18.
Yep.
So yeah, no, because when I did come out, I had just started my first year of adult competition, which
Yep.
we used to call seniors.
Yes.
But now seniors is a very different thing. It's over 50, and now I'm senior. So anyway, yeah. So
well, hang on, we've got to put it back. It can be over 45 in some of them.
In some of them,
yes.
yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
give you a few years back there.
Yeah.
So I guess, was there a time when you were a junior, obviously you came out post that, so when you were 18, was there a time when you were a junior when you thought about telling anyone in the sport, or no? And was there a reason behind?
It was it was mid 1980s.
Yep.
Just wasn't. Like, I've got a 15-year-old nephew.
Yes.
And his best friend at school is gay. And I
Yep.
said, when did he come out? And he said, oh, he's just always been gay. I think, no, like, so I think all those sort of big markers aren't as kind of defined anymore.
Yep.
So, what was your question again?
I was just about like whether you had thoughts of coming out.
Oh, right. No.
Yeah.
No, sorry. No, not really. And I really tried not to harbor any sort of, you know, feelings towards other boys. I always had really good friends, really close male friends. Always have had. Who haven't necessarily been gay, and I've always kind of held that in such high regard that I think, you know, just things turn off.
Yeah.
So you know, and it's, as I said, it was the 80s. It wasn't like as easy as, you know, just kind of rocking up one day. It was a big decision. It was like a really big decision, and it was very scary. So it involved a lot of strategy, and so yeah. So no, I waited until I finished juniors. I think it had something to do with, because I was quite, I was quite popular as a kid.
Yep.
And I loved it. I loved the social side of bowling as much as I loved kind of the competition side. And I think maybe I just thought, I don't want to be pitied, or, you know, I don't want the you know, it's kind of, this sounds really sort of conceited, but it was a bit off-brand.
Yes.
Not in terms of, you know, I didn't really care about how I was perceived in terms of sexuality or masculinity or all that sort of thing. That didn't really bother me too much, but it was a big change, you know.
Especially back then.
Yeah, and I'd gone through all this time really kind of liking who I was.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, well, I like that new person.
Yes.
So, yeah. Which is unfortunate, because I did kind of get a lot better as a junior, and I was quite competitive at the end, and I was lucky enough to get taken away to all these amazing coaching clinics and stuff like that. And had I kept going, you know, I imagine I still would have kept the trajectory.
Yeah.
So, you know, sort of, I always wonder about that, but it's not like life didn't go well because I wasn't bowling. Life was fine. I had a great time as a young person, and I was too busy to bowl. To be perfectly honest, I was kind of out and about, and I did get involved in the community quite early. When I moved to Sydney, I was working for Mardi Gras within a few years, and I was on lots of committees and things. So I've always been sort of involved in stuff, you know. So there's just maybe wasn't enough room for, you know, organised sport in this term, in this situation, bowling. yeah.
Do you think that, the not being open with your sexuality at the time, did that potentially contribute to your decision to cut off bowling, or is it more just a whole life thing?
So you're saying if I had maybe decided to come out at 16 or something and blend, because you make a jump from juniors to adult competition, and never the twain did meet back. No. Like you weren't allowed to earn money as a junior, you weren't allowed to compete in adult competitions. Now there's a lot more blur, and I just wonder whether it was, it wasn't like I have to jump from this pond into this lake. It was, and maybe if everyone was conditioned, was used to the new me. Because that's how a lot of people did treat it in those days. It was like you're a different person. I remember someone, she was quite prominent. She was very, very prominent. And she was a quite good friend of mine. And she said, "Oh, how's the new lifestyle?" And I thought, she was a bit of a card. She's a funny chick, but I didn't take it very well. I was very sensitive to it. This was after I came out, when I was kind of still hanging around and bowling a bit. Feeling very uncomfortable, mind you. And so it's kind of, when you're feeling that uncomfortable, your sensitivity's up here. Anything that anyone says. Like there was one guy I was convinced was behaving in a quite hostile way towards me. But then, fast forward 30, 35 years, he's sent me all these like old records and letters and result sheets. I don't know where he got them from. And I just so loved. I didn't ask him. He just sent them to me. It was a Facebook thing, and I thought, wasn't that nice? I thought maybe I had it all wrong. But as I say, everything's changed, and everyone's perceptions towards us has changed. Most people's. So it's kind of hard to tell. Would I have been safe? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think I would have been in any sort of physical harm, but emotional harm definitely. So.
And I think before you, it's ingrained in there.
Visceral response, isn't it?
Probably just want to pick up, like you did say that you were, not feeling the best about it. Particularly, you come out, you were starting bowling in what was called seniors, or what we commonly know now as adults, and obviously that interaction with that person, how it has your new lifestyle, and it wasn't all sitting well with you. I potentially think that might have been, but did you feel like at that stage that yes, I've come out, I'm open about my sexuality now, but there's not really a place for me here? Did you feel sort of on the outer?
There definitely wasn't a place. There was lots of women who, they weren't out, but they were couples. It was really strange, and they were they were quite in the upper echelons of the sport. And one of them was my coach, and her partner, they'd been together for years. And I just used to think, like, they're lesbians, aren't they? Is the only one in the room that's going to say the word? But it was the same days you had Elton John and Boy George and Freddie Mercury running around pretending they were bisexual or asexual, or not that there's anything wrong with those two things, but they certainly were homosexual. So it was kind of that whole, again, it's that like, oh, well, no one else is willing to put a name on this. So it kind of felt like I had to, hello.
We got a special guest appearance here. Hello.
It was kind of about all of that being, like, I was going to be the first. There was a man, a bit older. I thought he was older. He was probably 35. And,
perception back then, right?
And he was clearly gay. But it was not like I felt I could talk to him. I didn't know him that well. But it was like, again, I just thought, I didn't want people to talk about it, but I did want people to acknowledge it, So, it was, I think maybe that whole idea about, I would have had to have been, because I'm sort of, I'm a fairly sort of out there kind of person. It was, I couldn't have just flown under the radar. Oh, by the way, have you heard, Jamie's gay? It wouldn't be that. It'd be headline, Jamie's gay, which, I wasn't up for. And as well, I was, you stop, so much happens around that age. Like, you're finishing school at the time, in bowling, if you're a junior, you'd know this, those last few years, it's like fever pitch. You're everywhere all at once, if you're doing well, you know, people want a bit of you, and it's fantastic, but it takes up a lot of time. And then, you know, then you have to sort of start paying for things yourself, and you know, you might start moving out about that time. And the money thing was
Huge.
a big part of it. Things were expensive back then. I know things are expensive now, but things like bowling balls and airfares were like not priced too differently than they are now.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, but they weren't. It still is an expensive sport, but it used to seem very, very expensive. Especially the travel, especially from Adelaide, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like you could drive everywhere.
Well, I think too, like most of the tournaments are on the eastern seaboard, so it makes it very prohibitive to drive. Like Melbourne, you can, but especially when you start talking about Sydney and then going up to Queensland and that sort of thing. That was it was always a big expense for me in bowling as well, was the travel.
I got a bus to Queensland once.
Oh God,
it was revolting. I woke up, I'd fallen asleep, and I'd squashed a fly on the window, and I sat up, and my friend Jay's like, "You got something in your face, mate." And I thought, oh, this is horrible. You know, no one should have to get a bus to Brisbane.
No, well, I remember my first junior nationals, we got a bus to Canberra, and that was bad enough. I think we bussed all through the night as well. I think it's about 19 hours or so to Canberra. I can't remember, in a bus. And we'd gone overnight, and then that day we were bowling squads. And it was just, it was horrendous. I think I was being 10 at the time.
Call child protection. Seriously. That Canberra thing, it's funny. Mum and Dad used to be driving holidays. Canberra was always perceived as drivable. Sydney, no way. It's like 3 hours more. We'd already driven, 498 to get there.
Might as well just go a little bit further.
I was always like, give me the Sydney. I had always like been very curious about Sydney. I think because I knew what it was like.
Yes.
With showbiz and I loved all that. That's why I live in King's Cross. So I can see the old Sybil townhouse there. That's where they always hang out. I kind of like the vibe. And I always, when I started coming up here for holidays, when I was kind of 18, 19, it did like start to
drag you in,
Which again, that was, and once I got here, I could barely afford to pay rent and run a car. I bought my car with me. I didn't have it for long. But I barely had money for anything else. Sydney's expensive.
Yes.
So, like, bowling, I bought all my stuff with me, but all my stuff in those days to bowling was 3 bowling balls. And I thought that was excessive. It was excessive.
Now you've got that many plus,
I don't know.
3 many spare bags of bowling balls in there.
Which bothers me from like an environmental point of view. I have to say, all these people getting new bowling balls all the time. I think, why are you buying them?
The easiest thing to throw out either, are they?
Not really. That's the one little thing I have thought about. Getting some sort of initiative together. What to do with old bowling balls, and then it seems too hard. Anyway, I digress.
I suppose I wanted to, obviously you had a long gap then in bowling, and you said you picked it up 5 years ago. So it was
32 years.
32-year gap in your bowling career. You've come back, been sort of welcomed by the sport again, from all the stuff that I can see on social media and my relationship I've got with people in the bowling industry, and then started a Pride Monarchs team to go to the Nationals. So it was the first Pride team that we've ever had in a national bowling competition, and probably one of the first Pride teams that there were that went into a national competition of any sort in Australia.
Which was fully sponsored.
Which is absolutely amazing. I want to know, how did that come about?
You just ask people. It's that easy.
Because I know I had a lot of, not resistance, but during the marriage equality campaign, I was quite close with the CEO of Temping Bowling Australia at the time, the national sporting body, and I sort of asked, is TBA willing to take a stance and make a statement on this? And it was very much, as individual people, we are supportive, but as a board and as a senior management, we won't make a statement on it. Yes.
When was that?
So that was 2017. So to see a Pride team last year at the national championships just warmed my heart.
Good.
What was the thinking behind it, and how did you sort of come up with, I'm going to do it, I'm going to have this Pride Monarchs team?
I've been thinking about this, and I've just remembered what in 20. So there's a state-to-state competition explained to the punters called Rockway. It's not spelt like that. It's RACHUIG. It's very, unfortunately, it's not so much anymore, but it was very prestigious.
Yep.
So as kids, Dion and I would bowl President Shield, and then, be expected once you get to adults, you would, represent your state in Rockway. And so a couple of years after I took up bowling here, I made the New South Wales Rockway team.
Yep.
Not many people tried out. I didn't care. I still got a blue shirt, whatever. And I was in the seniors team as well. Neither of those teams went to Tasmania because of COVID.
Yeah.
It was very upsetting. So I kind of thought, oh, I'm bowling that. And then I don't know if I'm on the New South Wales committee, and I don't know if I got on that committee before, and I thought it wasn't appropriate if I was putting my name up to be on the team.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I decided, I did a bit of asking around, spoke to lovely people like Michael Craig,
Yep.
and I think I'd met Madeline by then, and I thought, okay, we've got myself and 2 good bowlers, and we should be able to call a fairly good team together. And then 2022, I had some family stuff. I didn't go forward with it, but they'd approved the idea, the people who ran the franchise competition. And then, the next year, just everything fell into place. This woman called Romany Brooks. Thank you, Romany. I'm still very grateful for her
Shout out
generosity.
To you.
She gave us some commission. My partner and I had sold a property, and she sliced off $5,000 for the entry fee for the team, which was going in her pocket, and she gave it to us to get at least the entry fees paid, and we sort of got some other sponsors, some clients and whatnot, and so I thought, okay, let's do it, and we did it.
That's awesome.
So it was interesting. There were a couple of people who I spoke to, and the response from one of them was, some people didn't like the idea of the new Rockway because it was a bit sort of, that's not traditional. So I totally get that. That was fine. But there was one person, and I've spoken to him about this, I think. But because Madeline was going to bowl on the team, Madeline is a trans woman who was on our team. This person said, I just think it's going to be controversial. And I just said, but that's the point.
Yeah.
And it was he's a different generation to me. He's probably 25 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh gosh, is that normal thinking for a younger gay man? I don't know.
That's very that's quite weird as well, because I would have thought that we're moving into a more accepting time frame than what it was when it was particularly when you grow up and when I grew up.
It was controversial.
Yeah, it was.
It was messy, and I think I thought back and I thought, you know what? Maybe he was onto something.
Yeah.
He's a very high level bowler, and he's a great guy, and I just thought maybe he was being wise, which is hard to sort of acknowledge.
Yep.
It's it's kind of conflicting. So,
but I think too, yes, it was going to cause a bit of a stir, but at some stage too, I look at everything that sort of changed the way that we are as a society, and that's brought about controversy, and the first Mardi Gras march was a protest.
People got thrown in jail.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I always look at that. Look through history.
And Sydney Morning Herald published their names. Never forget.
All of them.
Never forget.
However left they want to try and present themselves now.
Yeah. It's in the vault.
So I think that there's always going to be a level of controversy around that sort of thing when you're making change and making inroads. What I'd be keen to know was the team accepted from all the other teams in the competition and the administration?
Yeah, look, there are a few people who are a bit sort of funny, but that was more about skill. Are you good enough to be in this?
Yeah.
It was directed towards me, I have to say. I didn't perform very well. I was a bag of nerves. It was very stressful. On the ground there, it was really, really stressful.
Yep.
And that had a bit to do with some of the guys on our team whose behaviour was a bit on the nose.
Yeah.
And, I kind of thought, not only can you not walk past that standard of behaviour, because it's akin to accepting it, but unfortunately, especially in a situation like that, we have to hold ourselves to a
Yeah.
higher level,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just the way it is. It's kind of not entirely fair, but it's better than not being a part of things.
Yeah.
I guess it's
Yeah.
one of the trade-offs. Anyway, but no, they were pretty good. They were really good. There was a little bit of how do I put this? Sexualization
Yep.
of gay men.
Yep.
You know, which bit finna. It's all it was fine for a while, but it's like
Got to be old real quick.
yeah, very quick. But no, pretty well received, very well.
Good.
Yeah.
Now you said
we flogged a few good teams as well. Yeah,
good. That'll put them back in their place.
Yeah. We bowled much better when I got rid of the other guys, and I had no idea they were really stressing people out.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Especially, I think there would have been a heightened level of stress within the team just from what you were doing, like you know, wearing pride colours all throughout the competition.
Yeah, it was all a bit.
Yep.
For 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty intense anyway. Those sort of competitions, it's like you've got to get up early. You're bowling all day. It's hot. You don't eat properly. It's just like, and then having all that on top of it was just a bit
too much.
Yeah, I cried at the end. Cried at the end of everything though.
You made it. You did it. You had the first.
We did it. Yeah.
First, LGBTQI plus team, a pride team in a national competition, which is fabulous. And you said before there was a little bit of controversy. I believe that did surround the trans athlete, Madeline Fitzroy. Tell me through some of the struggles with Madeline.
So I used to play juniors with Madeline. She was a year or two younger than me.
Yep.
And as you know, as a junior, that's 20 years when you're 17. So I didn't know Madeline back then that well. She had a scorecard that said she beat me like 258 to 257. Like, where did you get that from? Good on you. Good for you. And she was introduced to me by Bree McPherson.
Yep.
Who unfortunately doesn't bowl anymore.
No.
And she's a fantastic bowler and a very nice girl, woman. She joined our team. So in like the men's team are allowed to have women bowl on the team. So there was no big deal about that. There was no sort of question about that. However, after the teams event, there's a singles event called the Masters, which is not an age thing. It's a format thing. And naturally, she had Madeline, and before then, Madeline had been bowling in. She's over 50 like me, so she bowls in seniors events. She had bowled in some senior events in the female division, and she had bowled in some open events in the female division. So there was as you know, there was a tournament that you were presiding over where the decision had to be made.
Yeah.
And you did your due diligence, and the precedent sort of stood. Unfortunately, they haven't made a call on it yet, but everyone's happy with the situation, including Madeline.
Yes.
She understands the complexities of it. Anyway, so unfortunately, the event organisers, because our national competition was sold to private event organisers
or planners, and
who had like a lot of sway down in Tasmania, and they had a lot of money, and it cost a lot of money to enter the competition as well, might I add. But it was husband and wife team. The wife, Ashley, she's quite open about it, and she had a lot to say about it publicly. Who is a very nice woman. For someone whose politics do not align with mine, I get along very well with her. I think she's a very nice woman, and her husband's a very lovely man as well. And but her views on trans women in sport were, look, let's just say they aligned with a lot of her views on a lot of things, which was from a certain kind of playbook. And to her credit, she was totally open to Madeline about talking about it, and I think they had to come around. Like, I think when you sign contracts for government-funded events, we do tenders at work, and I know there's a whole lot of stuff you have to sign about discrimination and that kind of stuff. So she was treading on thin ice, but it was pretty distressing.
Yes.
You know, and I'm going to be really frank here. I'm probably saying too much, but one of the team members I asked to go home, who was our manager, said, "Oh, it doesn't really matter if Madeline wears a skirt or not. She'll just have to wear pants if they kick up too fast." And I said, "She is not wearing pants. She is not." Madeline had told me her story, and we've become quite good friends. She told me her story and how it all happened. And one of the big things is she wanted to bowl in a skirt. It sounds really simple, but she just wants to bowl in a skirt, as a woman. Well, she is a woman. And I just thought, oh, no, you can't take the skirt away. No, that's not good. Anyway, she ended up bowling in the Open Women's competition and did really well. Like, she came third, which is
amazing.
Kind of it's probably the most prestigious tournament on that sort of card.
Correct.
And she came third, and I've got to say, it really is challenging when you're kind of fighting so hard for something, and then you kind of like, okay, we made it, and you're in the arena, and you're like, oh, well, do I want to win? That's going to attract a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Of course I wanted to win, but it was challenging.
It's sad that those thoughts come to mind, and I dare say they'll come to Madeline too, and I'd love to speak to Madeline one day on the podcast too. A bit of a segue.
It was horrible.
Which would be great, because I think it's just, you show the innocence of what she wanted to do there. Like, I just want to bowl in a skirt. Like, that's like, I just want to compete as a woman.
Yeah.
Is all she wants to do. And I just think that people that want to deny that just probably need to open their eyes a little bit. But there's a lot of stigma that goes around these sorts of things. And I know that, trans women particularly, inclusion in women's sport is highly politicized.
Yeah.
I don't think that anyone does near enough research into what is making a significant difference to performance or not.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we speak from a competitor's standpoint. We don't want anyone to have an unfair advantage.
No.
For no reason. But
well, let people bowl two-handed, didn't they? They've got an advantage.
I think there's a history through sport where you look at things and you just think, why is this being blown up to be such an issue compared to
conflated.
other things?
Unfortunately, like lots of things these days that unfortunately involve minorities, like the yes vote, there's a whole lot of stuff brought in to complicate the argument. It's like I personally believe that the yes vote, put a few noses out of joint here, was a very simple question.
Yes.
It was very simple. It became very complicated the more time people had to pick at it. The whole trans women in sport thing it's kind of similar to that. It kind of brings, the woman in Tasmania, as she was, talking about, oh, I do the same to protect my daughters. And I was like, what? And then it's about, using the toilets. It's about wearing a skirt. It's about power. Has she got more power? And people, when I talk about this with people are like, oh, is it a power game? I said, yes, but there's lots of women out there who can generate as much power as Madeline can. And not unfortunately, but it just happens that Madeline has quite a powerful
technique,
shot.
yes.
Yeah. But I'm a speed dominant player, but we achieve fairly similar results. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. It's that kind of game.
100%.
And what she's had to go through, and like her, when watching her perform in those really kind of tense sort of moments, she seems to elevate a bit. Most of the time. I've seen her when she doesn't, and it's she gets a bit upset. There's a lot going on. She's fantastic. She's like, she's I don't know. She's learned how to channel it, and it was. She did very well in another tournament this year, like another very prestigious tournament, and it was again like, oh God, she's gonna win.
And I think that's the unfortunate thing too that we look at, because a lot of the time people won't complain if you're coming middle of the pack, middle of the field.
Oh shit, no!
But as soon as you start winning, go for it. As soon as you start winning, that's when people start to really irk up and start to make comments. So, I think. That her being successful now is probably going to bring up another conversation.
Our sport, I have to say, generally has been I'm going to rate them as magnificent.
Yep.
Especially in the senior ranks. I just thought, whoa, this is not going to end well.
Well, no.
I just don't know. It's kind of you with anything like that. You reach a tipping point. There's a certain amount of people who are okay with it, and some of the people who are okay with it, that's kind of have more weight, and suddenly okay, and it's all fine. However, can be taken away.
Can.
So,
but it's really refreshing to hear that, particularly from an older demographic, talking about seniors, talking about over 45s who wouldn't have been raised with, let alone gay and lesbian people being an accepted part of society, like a trans athlete then, and a trans woman athlete competing in a female event, that would have been a massive big faux pas, and it would have been off limits. So to hear that she's been embraced by that demographic,
and it is
great.
They have embraced. They're like, the ladies love her. They've been, and they're genuine. They're really warm towards her. They've been fantastic. There's just some people who are cold, but they're cold to everyone.
Yes,
you can't take that personally. So it's been really good.
It's awesome. Just to piggyback off of that, how have you found your experience now? Obviously, you've come back into the sport. Potentially, I believe, would be bowling against some of the people that you did when you were a junior or started to go into seniors. Not many.
But the ones that are left are very, very good.
Yep.
They're really good, which makes me think, damn, I should have stopped. But that whole thing about, no one really cares unless you're doing well.
Yeah.
Last 2 years ago, when I'm because I've kind of had to start from scratch.
Correct.
I'm still trying to get better. I've done a lot of work, and I've gotten a lot better. Still got a way to go. But when you do, start to get noticed, people, it's harder to please some people. You do get noticed more. Not all of that attention is good.
Yes.
Had I been experiencing that when I first started back, I would have mistaken that for homophobia.
Yeah.
It actually has nothing to do with that. Especially because I entered seniors, and that, like, they all know who's coming up, who's going to age out into seniors. And it's like, well, you're not meant to be here. Who are you? I turned up literally when I was 50. They're like, no, there's not enough room for you.
You
didn't matter who I was. No. So fix that though. So but I think organised sport is a very particular beast.
Yep.
It's lots of people complaining, lots of passionate people, lots of stories about money going astray and all these sorts of crazy myths. So it's a complicated environment. And so you can't get some of that stuff mixed up with people being like targeting you personally.
Yes.
So
I love that sort of you hear these stories now, and it's probably similar to my own stories. I host a nationally ranked event that sort of hopefully I think led the way for Madeline's inclusion in the women's events. I did receive a phone call from the national body about her participating in my event, and I'm like, if anyone's got a problem with it, they can talk to me, and that sort of shut all that down. So I was fortunate and glad that that did happen, because I think we need to afford people the opportunities to be able to do these things and be comfortable in events. How do you sort of see the impact of the Pride Monarchs on potentially wider sporting world? Do you think that potentially that it will lead to some change in other teams participating in other sports?
If I don't know that we had that much profile. I don't know if bowling has that much profile, unfortunately. I wish it did. I don't know. I don't know a lot about other sports. Every sport seems to be quite particular in how it treats. It's it's rainbow athletes. We just saw the Matildas, and there was, I don't know, I don't watch that kind of news where it's going to be said. I don't watch much news at all anymore. there was a bit of backlash, about a lot of the girls, having wives there and girlfriends there, which thankfully got squashed. But I did raise a question like, was it their success that pushed that back?
Yeah.
Or was it the sport handling itself well? Yeah, so I don't know. There seems to be a lot more female athletes than there are male.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that men stop playing sport when they come out.
Yeah.
Or if they're homosexual.
Sure, yeah.
Because obviously they haven't come out.
No.
So that's a shame. Like, I don't know. You and I are both huge AFL fans.
Yes.
There's no one, is there?
No. There's no openly gay male player. Yeah.
There's too many people. That's how many teams in that competition?
18.
They've got 20 players a team. That's crazy. It's 360 people.
Plus their roster will have about 40 odd players in it.
So 500 people. There's not one gay man. That's not true.
Well, there definitely is. One that's
that's a shame.
It is a shame. That's probably one of the things that's led to the work that I've been doing, trying to end homophobia in sport, in around trying to get a pride round rather than just a pride game in the AFL. I still think that's important. People sometimes think that having pride teams, having pride rounds is all just theatrics and it doesn't really do anything. But I think you can see, and there's studies that Vic Health did on the first pride game between St Kilda and Sydney, just around how it changed attitudes and changed people's perception of whether they can be included in sport or not.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, all the research you look through, there's out on the fields studies that are done on LGBTQI plus participation in sport, and it's very similar to what you've experienced. Is that you play organised sport to start with as a kid, might do that because you have to.
Well, they all come through as kids, don't they? You don't start it when
like
people start bowling when they're 22 or 25, and they can get good in a few years.
Yes, yeah.
Can't do that with
other sports. No.
Tennis as well. I don't know a gay tennis player.
No.
I actually read some story about a documentary. There was a gay German tennis player that, like, at the time of World War II. It's really interesting. I'll send you the link to
I'll have to find
It's really interesting. It's really, but yeah, like tennis. Queens love tennis. And I've seen a lot of good men. I played for a while in a social competition. It was not social. It was highly competitive.
I think all social sport ends up being highly competitive.
And it's like I'm a huge tennis fan. It's like, where's the gay man?
Yep.
There's a few very high profile women who are out. One of them is Russian, which is particularly tricky for her.
Correct.
I thought it was incredibly. I don't want to use the word brave. I don't like that word. Courageous. It's the same thing. But, but no, man. The sport thing's very disappointing.
Yes.
But saying that, it has been good to see there's a lot of gay men who bowl now.
Yeah.
And it's no big deal.
And I love that. And some part of me thinks that it's got to do with it not being as high profile as well. So I think in the smaller sports, you're starting to see a lot more visibility and people are willing to come out, which is great. And hopefully that'll then trickle into other sports. Because, I mean, your story, Madeline's story, while not as accepting from everybody, you can see that these people, when they come out, and people from our community, when they come out, are actually being embraced by their sporting community. And
I'm pretty confident saying it will happen.
Yeah.
Most of the time. It will happen. I don't think it's an if anymore.
No.
American pro bowling as well. Men.
Yes. Well, there was Scott Norton.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
So, yeah, Scott Norton was an openly gay man on the professional bowling tour.
Okay, thank you.
But he was probably the only one.
Right.
He'd be the only...
But, there's several. Liz Johnson.
Yep.
Shannon Plahowski. And they're not just like middling. They're like they're like legends. They're
correct. We even look back at some of the greats in female bowling, and it was some of the big names in there were all openly gay athletes.
Yeah.
So I think definitely, hopefully, a changing landscape. I'm just so thankful that now that the bowling community has come around you, supports you. I think definitely as well the needle shifted on Madeline as well, which is great. And I just love hearing these positive stories.
She was brave enough to be the first.
She was.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
A trailblazer.
Yeah. I have to say one thing I got told that sort of didn't upset me, but it sort of shocked me. I thought, do people still say that? Someone said to me recently, "Oh, well, you know, when I first met you, I had no idea." It's like, do you think that's a compliment? I don't want to be perceived as straight, and I don't want to be straight. So I kind of I know where it's coming from, but
yeah,
it's not a compliment.
I don't know. Sometimes
I don't want to pass.
I don't know.
You know? Anyway.
I don't know. Sometimes maybe they think that that wasn't the most important thing about you.
Correct. Yeah, it came from a good place.
I think it came from
but I hadn't heard it for a long time. It was a whole like, oh, such a waste. You know that thing. Like,
yeah. I think
waste for who?
When you compare it back to attitudes from long ago.
Yeah.
But I think now it generally comes from a place of love and probably to open up a little bit more a conversation with you around it all.
Yeah.
Beauty.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good chatting.
Yeah.
And we will obviously chat very soon.
See you on the lanes? You're going to come join the
I
Monarchs?
don't know. You've been trying to twist my arm, haven't you?
Yeah.
I haven't bowled for like 5 years, by the way.
Yeah,
so you've been trying to get me back into it. So we'll see how that goes. Bring me in.
Yeah. You owe me one now.
I do owe you one, actually. Yes, now I do owe you one. Maybe. Might be a comeback on the cards. Who knows? Jamie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
for
Dion.
sharing your story.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
I can't thank Jamie enough for being so open and honest, particularly about some of his childhood memories. I know how much that can affect some people from our community, so it was great to hear Jamie's experiences. If you are an openly out athlete still competing, I would love to hear about your experiences. Please DM us, send us an email, we'll put all of those links in the show notes. There is one thing I have for you to do today for me, and that is to leave us a 5-star rating and review in your favorite podcast player. Also, one bonus thing for today, if you can please share this podcast with someone that you know will enjoy it, I would be forever grateful. It helps us get to more ears and we can have a greater impact with everything that we're doing. Thank you again for listening. You've been listening to Our Pride by Mr. Gay Pride Australia. I am Dion Alexander.